Hey everyone, and welcome back. Ready to dive deep into some serious happiness today.
Always up for a happiness deep dive.
We're jumping into The Courage to Be Happy today, exploring Alfred Adler and this whole idea of a psychology of courage.
It's a fascinating read. And don't be fooled by the title, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. It gets real about the stuff we struggle with. Work, relationships, you name it.
It dives right into claiming anyone can be happy starting right now. Sounds a little too good to be true.
It's not about some instant happiness trick. Adler's saying it's more about a perspective shift. We get so caught up in our past, but Adler believed we decide how we see the world, not the other way around.
So even if someone's had a rough past, they can still choose happiness.
Exactly. We hold on to past hurts, using them as excuses. Adler's challenging us to drop those old stories.
Okay, ditching the excuses, but easier said than done, right?
Yeah.
What's that deep down change actually look like?
Well, Adler uses this powerful image of death. Not literally dying, but the death of our old selves, those limiting beliefs that hold us back. It's about letting them go.
Wow. Okay, so what takes their place?
You choose empowering beliefs. It's about having the courage to change, to step into a new version of yourself.
Hitting the reset button on life.
Exactly. And that change affects everything, our relationships, how we see the world.
So it's not just about our own happiness, but how that ripples outward.
Now you're getting it.
Yeah.
And this idea of courage, it's huge in education, which the book digs into.
Education?
Yeah.
Okay, how does that fit in?
Well, there's this skeptical youth in the book. He's a teacher, and he's struggling with this no-rebuke approach. Feels like it's failing.
Yeah, where's the line between guiding kids and letting them run wild?
Right. It's a common worry. Adler talks about the separation of tasks. Whose problem is it? A child studies. That's their task, not the parents or teachers.
So just back off entirely.
Not that either. It's about letting them own their education. Think about it. If you're always being told what to do, where's the room for your own interests to flourish?
Makes sense. Let them be curious.
Yes. And this respect carries over to their behavior, too. Adler's big on respecting a child, even when they mess up.
Hold on, so no timeouts or consequences.
It's not about letting them off the hook. It's guiding them to see the impact of their actions, building that sense of responsibility.
So they learn to be more self-reliant.
Exactly. And that's key in Adlerian psychology. Moving from dependence to independence, finding that balance of freedom and responsibility.
That reminds me, the book really challenges that whole system of rewards and punishments.
Oh, yeah. Adler would say even praise can be problematic.
Wait, praise too? Really?
It's about where our motivation comes from. Relying too much on external validation, like praise, we give away our power.
Instead of doing something because it feels good, you're doing it for the good job.
Exactly. And that can backfire big time.
Because when that external reward is gone, you just stop doing the good thing.
Exactly. And it's not just external rewards. Think about competition. Someone's always winning, someone's always losing.
Which leads to comparing ourselves to others. Not exactly a recipe for happiness.
Creates anxiety, fear of failure. We lose that natural joy of just learning or trying something new for the pure fun of it.
So, no rewards, no punishments. Then what? How does that work, especially in a classroom?
Adler was a big proponent of the democratic classroom.
Democratic classroom. Sounds interesting.
Yeah.
But also a recipe for chaos? No.
Not about letting kids run wild. It's shared responsibility. Imagine. Kids feel heard, respected. They're not just following rules. They're invested in a system they helped create.
Interesting. But wouldn't some kids try to take advantage?
Of course. But it's approaching those challenges with understanding, collaboration, not punishment.
Working with them, not against them.
Exactly. And that collaborative spirit, it's vital for healthy relationships everywhere, which leads us to another big one, love.
And I bet Adler's take on love isn't what you'd find in a cheesy Hallmark movie.
You got that right. It's not about finding the one or living happily ever after. Love, for Adler, is an action, a choice. He even calls it a task. Not exactly romantic, huh?
A task. Definitely not how they write it in fairy tales. So what's that even mean, approaching love as a task?
It takes courage. Real courage to be vulnerable, to open yourself up knowing you could get hurt.
And that fear of getting hurt. That's what keeps so many of us from really connecting, isn't it?
Of course, it's natural. But those moments of vulnerability, when we let our guard down, that's where true connection happens.
It's a leap of faith. But how do you find that courage, especially if you've been hurt before?
That's where trust versus confidence comes in.
Trust versus confidence. Okay, I can see that's huge in a romantic relationship, but this isn't just about romance, is it?
Not at all. The book connects this to work, too. We see work as this, I don't know, transactional thing, but Adler saw it as deeply social.
Okay, I'm intrigued. How does trust versus confidence play out at the office?
So think of trust like this. It's conditional. You trust someone because they've earned it. They meet deadlines, they have good references.
You're checking their resume, basically.
Exactly. Confidence. That's different. It's unconditional. Believing in someone's inherent worth, no matter what.
I get it with love, but work. You're not trying to fall head over heels for your colleagues.
Hopefully not. But
Mhm.
Adler would say this confidence, it's essential at work too. Creates an environment where it's okay to make mistakes, to learn and grow.
So less about being buddies, more about support, even when someone messes up.
Now you're getting it. It's fostering potential, not judging every little slip up.
Teams would function so differently if everyone felt that, wouldn't they?
Right. And it circles back to love too. Confidence in your partner. That makes being vulnerable less scary.
Because you're not waiting for them to mess up to let you down.
Exactly. Confidence takes the pressure off. You can both be yourselves, and that's where real intimacy comes in.
Accepting each other, flaws and all. Not trying to change someone, but seeing the good, even when it's tough.
Exactly. And that acceptance, seeing the best in people, not just for romance, friendships, family, even coworkers.
It's like when you feel truly seen in a relationship, that feeling of belonging, like you're part of something bigger. That's Adler's community feeling, right?
Spot on. He thought it was crucial for happiness. Recognizing we're all connected, our lives are woven together. Think about a time you helped someone, volunteered, anything like that. Remember that feeling, part of something bigger.
Yeah, like your life has purpose, you're contributing.
Yes, it's shifting from me to us.
That's a tough one. Especially these days. How do we actually do that in everyday life?
It's not about grand gestures, really. Little things. Holding the door, truly listening to a friend, calling your grandma, just showing up with kindness.
Be the change you want to see, right? Starts with us, one interaction at a time.
Exactly. And when we shift like that, focus on giving, something amazing happens. We find a different kind of happiness, deeper, knowing we're making a difference.
Not chasing happiness, but creating it for ourselves and for others.
Yes. Finding joy in connection, in giving back, in those everyday moments we share just by being human. And to do that, Adler would say we got to remember we're not fixed, not defined by the past or even the present, really. We can create ourselves.
So it's not finding yourself, it's creating yourself.
Hmm.
Love that.
Right. We have a choice. And part of that, understanding where we come from, especially family, that's where book's order comes in.
Ah, birth order.
Yeah.
The book dives into that. So where you fall in the family, it really makes a difference.
It's not about destiny, but it gives us clues. Like firstborns, they often have all the attention for a while, right? They might even take care of younger siblings.
Makes sense. So they turn out more responsible, maybe a little bossy, the high achievers.
You got it. Then there's the second child, always someone to live up to. More competitive, maybe rebellious, trying to stand out.
Trying to one-up big brother or sister.
Right. And the youngest. They're navigating a world where the rules are already made. They learn to adapt, be charming, maybe a little mischievous to get their way.
Got to get creative when you're the baby of the family. What about only children? Where do they fit in?
They often have that firstborn vibe, responsible, driven, but they might need to learn to share the spotlight, collaborate more. It's not something they've had to do as much growing up.
So it's not a guarantee, right? Not every firstborn is a CEO. Not every youngest child is a comedian.
Of course not, but it's like a roadmap, not a GPS. Helps us understand our tendencies, our strengths, and yeah, maybe some challenges we got to work on.
Love that. It's all about self-awareness.
Right.
Which, speaking of, there's this idea in the book that feels kind of backwards at first. It's about self-reliance, but it talks about shifting from me to us.
Ah, right, the paradox of self-reliance. We think of it as being independent, right? But Adler believed true self-reliance comes from recognizing we need each other.
So it's not about being a lone wolf. It's more like being a good pack member.
Yes, we need community. We
Yeah.
need connection. And when we understand that, when we see ourselves as part of something bigger, that's when we become truly self-reliant.
So taking responsibility for ourselves and for others.
Exactly. We need each other. And when we understand that, when we see ourselves as part of something bigger, that's when we become truly self-reliant.
So it's about realizing our strengths comes from banding together, not going it alone. But that takes courage, doesn't it? To really show up for each other like that.
It does. It takes guts to be authentic, to be vulnerable, to make tough choices that reflect what we believe in. That's where courage comes in.
It's about pushing past our comfort zones. But where does that kind of courage come from? Is it something we're born with?
That's $1 million question. It's not about suddenly becoming fearless, you know? It's about taking those little steps outside our comfort zones again and again.
So not the big dramatic gestures, but those small, everyday acts of bravery.
You got it. Speaking up for what's right, even when your voice shakes. Setting boundaries in a relationship, even if it's uncomfortable. Chasing a dream that scares you, even if you might fail. That's courage.
It's like we prove to ourselves little by little that we're stronger than we thought.
Exactly. And the best part, the more you practice courage, the easier it gets. It's a muscle you build.
So it's not that brave people don't feel fear, they're just better at facing it.
Exactly. And they understand that fear can be a guidepost. It often points to what matters most to us. Think about it. If we weren't afraid, overcoming those fears wouldn't mean as much.
It's so true. We often regret the things we didn't do because we were too afraid.
Exactly. Fear can paralyze us or it can fuel our courage. And that choice to act even when we're scared, that's where the magic happens.
That's when we step into our power, when we choose courage over comfort.
Couldn't have said it better myself. But look, it's not always going to be easy. There will be setbacks, moments of doubt, times where you think, am I good enough, brave enough?
Those moments of self-doubt, they can be brutal. How do we push through those?
Be kind to yourself. Everyone has those moments. Don't let them derail you. Setbacks, they're part of growth. Not failures, but opportunities to learn, adjust, come back stronger.
Like giving ourselves the same kindness we'd give a friend going through a tough time.
Yeah, exactly. And don't be afraid to reach out for support. Talk to a friend, family, therapist. Sometimes just saying it out loud helps. You don't have to go it alone.
There's that community feeling again, knowing we're not the only ones struggling. But even with support, life can feel overwhelming sometimes.
Absolutely. And the book talks about that too. It talks about how, life is made up of trials of nothing days.
Nothing days. Sounds kind of depressing. Like, what's the point if it's all just nothing?
I know. It sounds weird at first. But Adler's not saying life is meaningless. He's saying that most of life is ordinary, everyday moments. It's not all big adventures and huge milestones.
It's the daily stuff. Making dinner, laundry, going to work.
Exactly. The routine, the mundane. But those nothing days, that's where we really live. And it's easy to miss the beauty of those moments if we're always chasing the next big thing.
We're so busy chasing happiness, we forget to enjoy the little joys we already have.
100%. So what if, instead of waiting for happiness, we find it in the everyday? That first sip of coffee, a good conversation, that feeling when you finish a tough task.
Finding the extraordinary in the ordinary.
Yes. Choosing to see the beauty in every single day, even the nothing ones. It's a choice, approaching life with that sense of wonder and gratitude.
That's such a good point. Especially these days when everything feels so fast-paced, overwhelming. It's easy to get swept up and forget to appreciate the little things.
For sure. But we have a choice. We can get caught up in the chaos, or we can choose to pause, breathe, appreciate those small miracles each day.
Shift our perspective from what we lack to what we already have, right?
Yeah.
There's always something to be grateful for, even on the tough days.
Love that. Gratitude is powerful. It's like this lens that helps us focus on the good, even when things are rough. And that choosing joy, even when it's tough, that takes courage too.
It really does. Choosing joy is an act of defiance sometimes. Well, this has been incredible, expert speaker. Thank you so much for this deep dive into Adler.
Anytime. I always love these conversations.
And listeners, we hope you enjoyed it too. We hope this deep dive into the courage to be happy gave you some things to think about. The journey to happiness, courage, self-reliance, it's not a finish line. It's a process.
It's those small steps, showing up as yourself, choosing courage when it counts.
So keep exploring, keep questioning, keep growing.
And keep choosing courage.
And until next time, keep diving deep.